Luo Feng stayed at the mountaintop pavilion, drinking the highly toxic black marsh fruit wine while cultivating the Great Destruction heart refining technique to temper his will. Due to the immense strength of his godly body after 3 body refinements, he greatly enjoyed the wine's effect on both his body and soul. Moyu Qingyan informed him that an envoy sent by the Marquee of Zhujiang had arrived. Although Luo Feng had rejected many visitors that night, he accepted the meeting because he respected the status of a primal chaos realm Marquee. He intentionally kept his distance from most major Foss's branches in Huyang City, as becoming too deeply involved could cause him to lose control over his own destiny. Those branches usually had low-ranking eternal true gods who could not provide significant benefits. However, he was willing to consider Emperor Chu Yu's invitation in the future because the imperial clan of the Flamewind ancient country possessed precious resources that could help him grow stronger and eventually assist his teacher, the mountain-sitting guest, against his great enemies. Soon, Moli Meng brought Zhang Yuyu, one of the 4 trusted commanders under the Marquee of Zhujiang, to meet Luo Feng. Zhang Yuyu explained that after the Marquee learned of Luo Feng defeating Yushin Shu, Yushin Yi, and Shui Yun, he was extremely pleased and sent him a list of rewards. Luo Feng could choose one among 9 inheritances, including the godly king-level inheritance, Void 9 Refinements Secret Manual, first volume and several complete Primal Chaos Realm inheritances. Luo Feng realized the Void 9 Refinements Secret Manual was related to the Great Tao of Void Origin, which did not match his own cultivation path. Understanding that becoming a godly king required comprehending a suitable origin Great Tao, he declined all the inheritances and instead chose 10 million cosmic sand. Zhang Yuyu was not surprised, believing that someone as talented as Luo Feng likely already possessed powerful inheritances. Zhang Yuyu also revealed that the Marquee had personally informed the monarch of Yu country about Luo Feng's achievements. The monarch was pleased to see such an outstanding talent emerge within Yu Kingdom and promised that an opportunity would soon be sent to Luo Feng through a special envoy. Luo Feng expressed sincere gratitude toward both the Marquee and the monarch, understanding that such goodwill from a godly king could not be ignored. During the conversation, Zhang Yuyu reminded Luo Feng that Marquee Lu Yin of Shi Kingdom might not accept his defeat quietly and that Huyang City could face future trouble. Luo Feng replied modestly that an individual's strength could only influence the overall situation so much, and the city's fate still depended on the city lord's forces. Zhang Yuyu explained the unspoken rule throughout the land of origin that primal chaos realm experts generally would not personally target weaker eternal true gods unless they had been directly provoked or were fighting for survival. After receiving the 10 million cosmic sand, Luo Feng had greater financial freedom. 5 days later, the catastrophe beast diagram he had purchased was delivered by the deputy pavilion master of the Flamewind Pavilion. The deputy pavilion master explained that the diagram had been personally drawn by an emperor of the Flamewind ancient country and that the best method of cultivating with it required a special companion treasure called the Void diagram, along with a secret technique. The Void diagram was normally only available to members of the Flamewind ancient country's imperial clan. The pavilion master had specially purchased one for Luo Feng at the price of 1 million cosmic sand and gifted both the Void diagram and the secret cultivation method to him. Luo Feng was grateful, recognizing that his displayed strength had caused both Yu Kingdom and the Flamewind ancient country's imperial clan to extend goodwill toward him. After the deputy pavilion master departed, Luo Feng immediately entered closed-door cultivation inside the Star Tower. Following the imperial clan's method, he overlaid the Void diagram on the Catastrophe Beast diagram, creating the 3000 Void Catastrophe Beast diagram, instead of comprehending the original diagram directly. This method reflected the Catastrophe Beast diagram through 3000 layers of the Void, allowing it to be studied from countless different perspectives and greatly enhancing the effects of cultivation. The first layer showed the Catastrophe Beast enduring endless disasters, continuously transforming until it emitted a brilliant light of the spirit that illuminated Luo Feng's own spirit. Even this first layer required the will of the primal chaos realm to endure. Although the original Catastrophe Beast's calamities were unimaginably more terrifying, the 3000 layers of the Void had weakened their impact by countless times, allowing Luo Feng to experience only a small portion of their essence. After finishing the first layer, Luo Feng understood it represented the fundamental sentiment of the catastrophe beast. He then entered the second layer, which contained the endless despair of death, followed by the third layer, which represented a calm and terrifying nightmare. With his powerful spiritual will, Luo Feng was able to immerse himself in each layer, experiencing the trials as if he had transformed into the catastrophe beast itself and personally endured every calamity. Luo Feng sat alone at the peak of his cave mansion, quietly watching the fine rain between heaven and earth. His study of the 3000 void calamity beast diagram had immersed him so deeply that he had reached only the 800 layers before temporarily stopping. The reason was not only because his spirit had become exhausted and needed rest, but also because the profound experiences contained within the diagram required careful reflection and digestion. Through the memories of the catastrophe beast, Luo Feng realized that its path was completely different from that of ordinary cultivators. Cultivators still lived within a world governed by rules and order, but the catastrophe beast was born into endless disasters. Every calamity it faced was designed to drive it into complete despair and annihilation. And if it ever surrendered or lost hope, it would perish. Only by possessing an unshakable heart of eternality could it continue surviving through one catastrophe after another. Even Luo Feng, who had experienced countless life and death struggles, felt a sense of fear and admiration when considering the endless suffering the catastrophe beast had endured. He also vaguely sensed that these disasters were not random, but seemed to be arranged by a mysterious supreme law different from the highest laws of the universe. This led Luo Feng to a deeper understanding of the spirit and will. He realized that the spirit appeared to be the most fragile part of a cultivator. Because once the spiritual will collapsed, even possessing a powerful divine body and supreme treasures would be meaningless. However, if one's spirit was truly powerful, that will alone could suppress enemies and become the greatest weapon. The heart could therefore be both the greatest weakness and the most terrifying source of strength. Luo Feng felt genuine admiration for the catastrophe beast, which had survived countless impossible disasters and eventually reached the opposite shore of transformation. During his contemplation, Luo Feng sensed Morosa inside the star tower requesting to come out. With a thought, he released him. Morosa appeared beside him and relaxed comfortably while enjoying the rain. Luo Feng knew that Shui Yun's corpse was still inside the star tower and asked why he was not continuing to absorb it. Morosa admitted that he had become too full. He explained that the previous eternal true god corpses had provided only limited benefits. But Yushin Shu's divine body was extraordinarily powerful, possessing a special bloodline and a body comparable to an unlimited divine body, causing him to become unable to digest more for the moment. Morosa explained that after a period of digestion, even without consuming additional divine bodies, he could maintain his strength at the primal chaos realm for dozens of eras. Furthermore, he felt that Shui Yun's divine body was even more attractive to him than Yushin Shu's. Once he completely absorbed Shui Yun's body, he was certain that he would directly break through into the primal chaos realm. Luo Feng was astonished by the speed of Morosa's growth. However, when Morosa jokingly asked when Luo Feng himself would reach the primal chaos realm, Luo Feng immediately shifted the conversation toward testing their willpower secret techniques. Knowing he was not confident in this area, Morosa quickly avoided the challenge and obediently left to continue teaching Moyu Qingyan, who had not yet mastered the 10 fundamental laws. In the following days, Luo Feng spent nearly all his time studying the 3000 void calamity beast diagram, only occasionally taking breaks to rest his spirit. One day, while he was inside the underground hall of the Star Tower studying the diagram, Moyu Qingyan urgently informed him that a personal letter from the Marquee of Lu Yin had arrived. Since it was a message from a primal chaos overlord, Luo Feng immediately came out to receive it. The letter had been delivered by Chen Shizhu, the chairman of the Qian-Shi Commerce Association branch in Huyang City. Despite his high status within the city, Chen Shizhu treated Luo Feng with great respect. After receiving the letter and returning to the mountaintop, Luo Feng removed the seal, causing the letter to suddenly ignite into blood-red flames. The flames condensed into a divine power incarnation of Marquee Lu Yin, a figure wearing dark red armor and radiating a terrifying aura of disaster. Marquee Lu Yin stated that he had heard of Luo Feng's extraordinary reputation as an eternal true god and had personally come to speak with him. He revealed his intention to conquer Zhujiang Primal Chaos Prefecture and incorporate Huyang City into his own territory. According to the rules of Shi Kingdom, a primal chaos overlord could only possess one primal chaos state as a hereditary territory. If they wanted more resources to continue advancing on the path of cultivation, they had to seize new lands through war. Therefore, the neighboring Zhujiang Primal Chaos Prefecture was the perfect target for him. Liu Yin explained that cultivation required not only personal talent and effort but also enormous resources. A primal chaos state continuously produced valuable resources. And without expanding his territory, his own cultivation path would be limited. Because of this, he declared that no one could stop him, as anyone standing in his way was effectively blocking his future path. He stated that he would personally deal with the Marquee of Zhujiang if necessary. But Luo Feng's individual strength at the eternal true god level was powerful enough to influence the entire war. Therefore, he hoped Luo Feng would remain neutral. If Luo Feng stayed out of the conflict, Liu Yin was willing to offer gifts and friendship. If Luo Feng interfered and destroyed his plans, he would become Liu Yin's enemy. After the divine power incarnation disappeared, Luo Feng understood that Marquee Liu Yin was completely determined to seize Zhujiang Primal Chaos Prefecture. The warning was both an attempt to intimidate him and a way to ensure that such a powerful eternal true god did not affect the coming conflict. Luo Feng thought carefully and decided that although he despised the evil deeds committed by certain forces in Huyang City, he had no intention of risking his own life for the Marquee of Zhujiang. The struggle for ownership of Zhujiang was ultimately a matter between primal chaos overlords and even godly kings, and he intended to remain cautious. Returning to the Star Tower, Luo Feng continued studying the 3000 Void Calamity Beast diagram. At the 533rd layer, he observed that the Catastrophe Beast had once encountered other beings of the same kind and had traveled alongside them. However, as endless calamities continued, its companions gradually disappeared. Some died from disasters, while others were even killed by the Catastrophe Beast itself in order to survive. By the 679th layer, the Catastrophe Beast had become completely alone. Yet this absolute loneliness had forged an even more terrifying spiritual will. Its will had reached such an incredible level that with a single thought, it could cause heaven and earth to collapse and even destroy the invisible laws of calamity themselves. Through these scenes, Luo Feng gradually discovered the cultivation path behind the Catastrophe Beast's telepathic methods. And his own spirit began undergoing a subtle transformation. At the 852nd layer of the diagram, the Catastrophe Beast encountered the greatest calamity of its entire life, a battle against another equally terrifying Catastrophe Beast. The two creatures fought a prolonged and brutal struggle that lasted until the 873rd layer of the Void Reflection diagram. After finally defeating its opponent, the Catastrophe Beast experienced a complete transformation. By observing this journey, Luo Feng felt as though he had personally accompanied the Catastrophe Beast through countless disasters. He gained a profound realization that a heart could become infinitely vast, great enough to oppose supreme laws, or infinitely small, capable of merging with countless insignificant lives. After embracing and becoming one with innumerable lesser existences, it could ultimately stand on equal footing with the highest supreme existence. As Luo Feng understood more of the Catastrophe Beast's telepathic cultivation method, his own spiritual will, which had long remained at the peak level of a primal chaos overlord, finally began to undergo a deeper transformation and step toward an entirely new realm. Luo Feng's spiritual will completely entered a new realm after comprehending the heart of eternality from the 3000 Void Calamity Beast diagram. His will was no longer merely unbreakable and capable of overcoming all obstacles. It now possessed the ability to be infinitely divided and remain full of vitality. Even if his will was nearly destroyed, as long as a trace remained, it could rapidly recover to its peak. Luo Feng realized that his spiritual will had long reached the peak of the primal chaos overlord level. But despite possessing a godly body 100 billion times stronger and cultivating the Lai Yuan technique for over 20 eras, he had failed to reach the godly king level because he lacked this essential insight. Without such understanding, only thousands or tens of thousands of eras of refinement could eventually bring a breakthrough. The 3000 Void Calamity Beast diagram had greatly transformed his understanding, allowing him to achieve this advancement in a much shorter time. With his new godly king-level spiritual will, Luo Feng's strength increased dramatically. Previously, relying only on his pinnacle primal chaos will and the Lai Yuan technique was not enough to guarantee victory against ancient primal chaos overlords, as many possessed powerful will techniques and profound inheritances. However, according to Mountain Sitting Guest's information, very few primal chaos overlords had godly king-level wills, meaning almost none below that level could rival Luo Feng. Combined with the Lai Yuan technique, he could dominate most beings in the primal chaos realm. Luo Feng also understood that as his strength grew, the advantage of the Lai Yuan technique would become less significant. The technique was only one of many inheritances left behind by Yuan, the legendary being who escaped the braided cage. Many of Yuan's inheritances were fought over by the forces of the land of origin and mostly ended up in the hands of the two ancient countries. His master even suspected that the ancient countries possessed beings who had also escaped the braided cage due to their overwhelming power and countless mysterious inheritances. Luo Feng was deeply shocked by the strength of the emperor of the flame-wind ancient country, who had personally observed the Calamity beasts and painted numerous Calamity beast diagrams. Luo Feng had only understood a tiny part of the diagram yet achieved a major breakthrough, while the emperor repeatedly painted them as a form of spiritual cultivation. This made Luo Feng realize the enormous gap between himself and such ancient existences. Although he had reached the threshold of godly king-level spiritual will, he remained humble and understood that many beings were far stronger than him. At the same time, he had confidence in his future potential, believing that after becoming a true godly king, his spiritual will would reach an even greater realm. After leaving the Star Tower, Luo Feng met Morosa, who was still digesting the benefits he had gained. Morosa planned to enter seclusion again soon to consume Shui Yun's divine body, break through to the primal chaos realm, master several innate secret techniques, and display the complete law of primal chaos to Luo Feng. As a sector beast favored by the highest rules, Morosa naturally controlled the origin of destruction and would eventually fully master the great Tao of destruction origin. Morosa sensed changes in Luo Feng but only learned that his master had gained new insights. Secretly, Morosa enjoyed the feeling of temporarily being stronger than Luo Feng after reaching the primal chaos realm. Later, in Luo Feng's small universe, which was 100 billion light-years in diameter and filled with a prosperous human civilization, he traveled with Shu Xin. Unlike before, Luo Feng decided to pause their journey because he had an important matter requiring the complete focus of his true body and incarnations, dealing with the primordial cosmos. Luo Feng explained that he intended to force the primordial cosmos to completely open its source ground to him. During the previous reincarnation era, he had only been allowed to enter a small section of it. By gaining complete access, he would be able to erase the primordial cosmos's will at any time and replace it with his own, obtaining control over the entire primordial cosmos. Although he did not wish to destroy its will and was willing to allow it to continue existing, it needed to fully reveal the source ground. According to ancient records, the primordial cosmos grants powerful beings who arrive at the land of origin through reincarnation the chance to seize control of it. But this requires an extremely powerful will, usually at least the primal chaos level and possibly the godly king level. Those who succeed gain tremendous benefits in cultivation, though godly kings like Mountain Sitting Guest have little interest in doing so. Now possessing a godly king-level spiritual will, Luo Feng was confident. He sent a divine power incarnation toward the primordial cosmos while his true body and other incarnations rested and concentrated almost all of their consciousness into that single incarnation. When it approached the primordial cosmos, the enormous will of the cosmos pressed down upon him. But Luo Feng's spiritual will caused the primordial cosmos itself to tremble. The will of the primordial cosmos questioned Luo Feng's intentions. Luo Feng declared that, according to the supreme laws, his strength gave him the right to control the primordial cosmos. He offered it two choices: either completely open the source ground while retaining its existence and control over the cosmos, or refuse and face Luo Feng's invasion into the source ground, where he would erase its will and replace it with his own. The primordial cosmos's will was unwilling to accept this because the source ground was as important to it as a true god's heart was to a true god. If Luo Feng gained complete access, it would have no ability to resist him. Therefore, it attempted to negotiate. hoping to reveal only a portion of the source ground while keeping its most fundamental secrets hidden. The primordial cosmos will attempted to negotiate with Luo Feng, but Luo Feng responded by unleashing his godly king-level spiritual will, forcing the primordial cosmos will into caution. He made it clear that he was not there to negotiate and demanded the complete opening of the source ground of the primordial cosmos, giving it only two choices: submit or resist. Although the primordial cosmos will possess the entire primordial cosmos as its foundation and the source ground had powerful defenses, Luo Feng was confident. He admitted that his divine power incarnation might be destroyed in a confrontation, but he could continuously send countless incarnations, ensuring that the primordial cosmos would eventually lose. Unlike the primordial ancestor, who once tried to replace the primordial cosmos from within using the virtual universe and was suppressed after failure, Luo Feng attacked from outside, requiring greater spiritual strength but involving less risk. The primordial cosmos tried to persuade Luo Feng, reminding him of their previous connections. However, Luo Feng only gave it a final chance. His spiritual will split into countless streams that penetrated every corner of the primordial cosmos while remaining united as an overwhelming force. Due to the vast difference in their levels, the defenses of the primordial cosmos collapsed wherever Luo Feng's will reached. Luo Feng understood the immense value of controlling the primordial cosmos. Such an opportunity was comparable to the Lai Yuan technique and could allow a cultivator to place one foot into the godly king realm. However, the difficulty was unimaginable. The powerhouses born within the 3,000 primordial cosmoses started from too low a foundation, making it extremely difficult to become eternal true gods, let alone primal chaos overlords. Even if they grew strong, they still had to face the disaster of the sector beasts, which could devour primordial cosmoses and destroy the miniature universes of eternal true gods. Therefore, Luo Feng had no intention of giving up this chance. As Luo Feng's spiritual continued to invade, the primordial cosmos finally surrendered. It agreed to fully open the source ground, asking only that Luo Feng spare its existence. Luo Feng promised to keep his word and entered the primordial cosmos. A naturally formed wormhole led him into the mysterious source ground, where he was now allowed to freely comprehend the operation of the primordial cosmos laws. Inside the vast primeval space, Luo Feng discovered countless specks of light containing enormous energy and information accumulated across countless reincarnation eras. They recorded the histories of civilizations and numerous secret techniques. But these held little value to Luo Feng because the beings of the primordial cosmos were relatively weak compared to his current level. The primeval space then covered Luo Feng in colorful radiance, and his will merged with the entire primordial cosmos. At that moment, he became one with it, experiencing its breathing, absorbing endless energy from the universe ocean and converting it into life energy while expelling harmful substances. He also understood that even the primordial cosmos would gradually decline and eventually face destruction before being reborn anew. Through this fusion, Luo Feng perceived every aspect of existence within the primordial cosmos. Countless stars, planets, grains of sand, and streams of air all felt like extensions of himself. He observed the life cycles of all things, from short-lived plants to long-lasting galaxies and starfields. He realized that the evolution of life and all phenomena was guided by the operation of cosmic laws. The 10 fundamental laws were only the most superficial manifestation, while the true wonder lay in their ability to generate infinite possibilities and create everything. Meanwhile, inside Luo Feng's miniature universe, Xu Xin worried about his confrontation with the primordial cosmos will. When Luo Feng opened his eyes, he reassured her that the primordial cosmos had yielded and that gaining access to the primeval space would greatly benefit his cultivation. Xu Xin was relieved, especially because Luo Feng's true body remained in the dangerous land of origin beyond the Samsara channel. Luo Feng comforted her, saying that as long as he remained low-key and avoided provoking terrifying beings, he could survive safely there. After a long period of cultivation within the source ground, Luo Feng realized that completely merging the 10 fundamental laws formed the law of primal chaos. But the operation of the primordial cosmos laws was far greater and more profound than even the law of primal chaos. His fusion with the primordial cosmos greatly accelerated his understanding of the laws. Following the information left behind by his master mountain-sitting guest and the Duan Dong River lineage, Luo Feng entered the true core of the source ground. The primordial cosmos did not dare to conceal anything, knowing the consequences of deceiving him. There, Luo Feng witnessed the substantial manifestation of an immense Tao, the legendary great Tao of life origin. At first glance, it appeared as an endless serpentine dragon with 24 claws, every scale and claw containing information far beyond the law of primal chaos. Its vastness surpassed the primordial cosmos itself, and Luo Feng's perfect divine body seemed insignificant before it. When viewed from different perspectives, the great Tao of life origin appeared as a dragon, a river flowing through past and future that transcended time and space. And even an endless supreme divine body far greater than the corpse of God King Jin that Luo Feng had once seen. It represented the origin of all life and the very concept of life itself. Standing before this completely revealed origin great Tao without any concealment, Luo Feng understood that this was the greatest opportunity for anyone seeking to control the primordial cosmos. Within the source ground of the primordial cosmos, Luo Feng observed the majestic great Tao of life origin. Compared to the elites nurtured by the Shi Kingdom, Yu country, or the two ancient countries, Luo Feng had always possessed far fewer cultivation resources. Even the Calamity beast diagram, which had greatly benefited him and allowed his will to reach the godly king level, was merely a low-level resource openly sold by the flame-wind ancient country. The combination of the Void diagram and Calamity beast diagram was commonly circulated among the descendants of major families there, showing that truly powerful forces regarded such treasures as insignificant. Now, however, Luo Feng had the opportunity to directly observe the great Tao of life origin. While Morosa could demonstrate certain mysteries of the great Tao of destruction origin, since his greatest understanding was the source of life and death, both origin Taos were extremely suitable for his future path, and he felt fortunate to have such opportunities. According to the inheritance left by his master, the primal chaos overlord, one could become a godly king after reaching the threshold of an origin great Tao. Only after becoming a godly king could one begin to glimpse the mysteries of the origin Tao they pursued. Before reaching that level, the origin great Tao was normally invisible and intangible, and only special methods, such as a godly king personally demonstrating the Tao, rare treasures revealing parts of the Tao, or possessing the primordial cosmos, could allow a cultivator to perceive it. Although countless opportunities existed within the two ancient countries, becoming a godly king still depended on individual talent and capability. Just as the Calamity beast diagram was available throughout the land of origin, very few individuals were able to cultivate their will to the godly king level. When Luo Feng first comprehended the great Tao of life origin, the enormous serpent-like dragon form before him transmitted endless information into his consciousness. Every scale and every one of its 24 claws carried immeasurable mysteries. The overwhelming flood of information revealed the shallowness of his previous understanding of laws, and the supreme beauty contained within the life origin naturally began altering his cognition. However, after only a brief moment, Luo Feng immediately sensed the danger and dispersed his divine power incarnation. Back in his secluded chamber beneath Huyang City, he realized that directly facing the complete life origin was extremely dangerous. This was why possessing a sufficiently powerful will was required to control the primordial cosmos. A weaker will could lose itself entirely, as the overwhelming truths of a higher Tao could replace one's own understanding or even drive one insane. Luo Feng understood that only what he personally controlled truly belonged to him. The information from life origin itself was not wrong, but his current realm was too low to absorb it all. It was like forcing a child who had only learned basic mathematics to instantly understand a chaotic flood of advanced mathematical theories. The correct approach was gradual improvement, establishing a firm foundation at every stage. Fortunately, his godly king level will allowed him to maintain absolute clarity. He separated his memories into those before observing the life origin and those after receiving its information, then selectively absorbed only the parts beneficial to his current stage while sealing away the knowledge he could not yet use. He decided that only after thoroughly organizing, researching, reflecting upon, and integrating the information could he observe the great Tao of life origin again. As time passed, Luo Feng temporarily stopped studying the 3000 Void Calamity beast diagram and devoted himself entirely to comprehending laws. His progress was far faster than his cultivation over the previous decades. During this period, Morosa arrived outside Luo Feng's underground chamber after completely digesting his previous gains. Luo Feng opened the doors and sent him into his personal lair within the Star Tower to continue absorbing the remains of divine monarch Shui Yun. As Morosa absorbed Shui Yun's body, he immediately sensed that Shui Yun's bloodline had already transformed into a primal chaos realm bloodline before his death. This was an enormous benefit, and Morosa happily continued absorbing and integrating its essence. Meanwhile, Luo Feng continued repeatedly observing the great Tao of life origin. By the ninth observation, each session provided him with tremendous amounts of Tao information, which he carefully digested afterward. Over this long period, his understanding had already reached the pinnacle of the eternal true God level. And the direct observation of life origin accelerated his accumulation toward the primal chaos realm far beyond his expectations. Nevertheless, Luo Feng knew that even with the great Tao laid before him, cultivation still required careful selection and gradual progress. It was similar to how the primal chaos laws were openly manifested in the primal chaos ruins. Yet very few could truly comprehend them, while Huyang City continued its ordinary life, unconcerned with the endless conflict between the Shi Kingdom and Yu country. Both Luo Feng and Morosa remained in seclusion, leaving only Moyu Qingyan to guard their cave mansion. Eventually, after completely absorbing Shui Yun's remains, a terrifying aura of destruction erupted from Morosa. The violent, murderous power filled his lair of the Star Tower and was so powerful that it interrupted Luo Feng's lengthy cultivation. Even Luo Feng's body automatically activated his blade technique domain to resist the overwhelming destructive force. Luo Feng realized that a sector beast advancing into the primal chaos realm was truly terrifying. After a long period of unstable energy fluctuations, Morosa's body revealed its perfect true form. An incomparably beautiful life form containing the highest mysteries of existence. Since a sector beast was born from the great Tao of destruction origin, its body naturally reached the absolute perfection possible within each realm. After a full day, Morosa awakened and informed Luo Feng that his internal domain had fully transformed into the primal chaos realm. His physical body then began its final evolution from the eternal realm into the primal chaos realm. And within a short time the transformation was complete. After the breakthrough, Luo Feng could clearly sense the enormous gap between the eternal realm and the primal chaos realm. Although both he and Morosa possessed perfect life forms, a primal chaos realm Morosa was so powerful that he could likely destroy Luo Feng with a single strike. Morosa explained that his divine power had become 100 times purer after the breakthrough, causing his body size to shrink greatly. He would now require a long period of absorbing energy to allow his body to grow. A process expected to last about one era. When Luo Feng asked about his ultimate size, Morosa explained that the knowledge inherited from the origin of destruction indicated that his true god-level body had a maximum height of 18 billion kilometers. The same as Luo Feng's. However, after reaching the primal chaos realm, his body would eventually grow beyond 1 trillion kilometers in height. Morosa's primal chaos realm body grew to over 1 trillion kilometers tall, possessing strength 100 times more refined than before. Such a massive body required an enormous amount of energy to develop. So taking nearly an era to reach its current limit was normal. Luo Feng understood that his own godly body would also require a long period of growth in the future. Even after comprehending the primal chaos laws, the overwhelming potential of a perfect life form made Luo Feng realize how terrifying a true pinnacle sector beast could become. A godly king-tier sector beast could potentially destroy Huyang City with a single breath, which explained why the major forces of the land of origin feared them and eliminated weak sector beasts before they had the chance to mature. Therefore, Luo Feng warned Morosa never to reveal his sector beast abilities outside the Star Tower, and Morosa agreed, intending to hide his strength and learn from the Tianmu Kingdom's sector beast until he reached the pinnacle. Morosa then revealed that before Shui Yun's death, his bloodline had completed a full transformation. After devouring Shui Yun's godly body, Morosa obtained a deeper understanding of the origin of destruction and displayed its mysteries to Luo Feng. Although the level of destruction he showed was far inferior to the complete great Tao of life origin, it contained complete primal chaos laws and destruction mysteries that were one realm higher than Luo Feng's current level, making them extremely suitable for his cultivation without the danger of distorting his path. After studying the destruction mysteries for only a day, Luo Feng returned to his own cultivation space because a new inspiration had already formed in his mind. By comparing the great Tao of life origin with the origin of destruction, he discovered a faint connection between the two opposite paths. He realized that pure life was too fragile without the power to protect itself, while pure destruction was too extreme and would naturally become the enemy of all living beings. Luo Feng came to understand that destruction should exist for the sake of life and protection. He decided to walk a path that fused the origin of life and the origin of destruction. A path he named the Tao of life and death. The moment he found his own Tao, his heart was filled with immense joy and certainty. Following this enlightenment, Luo Feng casually moved his finger through the air, leaving deep scars within the incredibly stable space of the Star Tower. Without burning any divine power, this simple strike already possessed power comparable to his full-powered attack that had defeated Shui Yun. It carried his unwavering will and his desire to protect his family, his people, and the countless humans living within his tiny universe. This became Luo Feng's first primal chaos realm technique, which he named Heart Honing. The name represented his wish to remain faithful to his original intentions despite the endless trials and temptations of cultivation. However, Luo Feng knew he had only taken the first step on this new path and was still weaker in realm than the former Shui Yun. So he continued cultivating patiently and steadily. Meanwhile, at the Lord's mansion of Huyang City, an armored woman named Yu Shui Tianyu arrived with her guards. As one of the 35 children of the monarch of Yu country and one of his more outstanding descendants, she had come specifically to meet Luo He after hearing of his astonishing strength, which even surpassed Yang Hu. The Lord of Huyang City confirmed that among the eternal true gods of Yu country, very few could compare to Luo He. Yu Shui Tianyu explained that the monarch of Yu country had prepared a special opportunity for Luo He, and if he passed the necessary trials, he might have the chance to become the monarch's disciple and even her senior apprentice brother. The 5 great families immediately arranged for her to meet Luo He.